Hybrid meeting. Participants in the room, please do not join the meeting in Zoom. Virtual participants, if you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members attending virtually, if you are able, please activate your video for purposes of quorum and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Members of the committee, when you wish to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote, please push the person button on your microphone or raise your hand virtually. Those in the room will have their microphone turned on when they are recognized to speak. Those attending virtually can unmute themselves when recognized. When you are finished, all should mute themselves. Members of the public who have registered to speak. Those appearing virtually, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. If you are here in person, when you are called to speak, approach one of the two podiums on either side of the dais, and you will be recognized. For all registrants, the clerk will tell you when your time is up. After all public speakers, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Thanks. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Jim, are there any notified absences today?
There are not.
Okay. I think we're ready for a roll call.
Okay. Alder Miadzi?
Present.
Alder Miadzi's here. Alder Verveer? I do not see. Mr. Brusick? Here. Mr. Brusick is here. Ms. Farley?
Present.
Ms. Farley is here. Ms. Westra?
Here.
Ms. Westra is here. Alder Knox? Don't see Alder Knox. And Ms. Carter?
Present.
Ms. Carter is here. Chair, we do have quorum.
Thank you. I call the order of the August 21st meeting of the ARLC to order at 5:44 p.m. First up on the agenda we have is approval of minutes from the July 17th meeting. Move approval by Mr. Brusick. Any seconds?
Alder Miadzi seconds.
Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, the minutes for July 17th are approved. Next up, approval of minutes for July 24th. Mr. Brusick moves approval on those. And looking for.
Second by Sherry Carter.
Thank you, Sherry. Any discussion? Seeing none, those are approved. Jim, do we have anything for public comment this afternoon?
We do not.
Okay. At this time, members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there currently any of those? Seeing none. Now it's time to present the consent agenda. At this time, a consent agenda will be moved with a recommended action or to grant with any recommended conditions if no action is recommended for each item except items which have registrants opposed wishing to speak, items which members have separated out for discussion or debate purposes, or items recommending ordinance changes or operator license applications. Jim, if you could read the consent agenda for us today, please.
Sure. Here's the proposed consent agenda for ALRC meeting August 21st, 2024. Recommended council to grant item 2, operator license application. Change of agent, items 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Entity reorganization, items 10, 11, and 12. Public hearing new license for item 24. This is a license that missed renewal. It had no conditions on the unrenewed license. And recommended council to grant with conditions public hearing items 28, 29, 30, and 31. And the conditions on the consent agenda are ones that were on the license that were not renewed.
Okay. Council, committee, what is your pleasure, please? Mr. Brusick.
I move to approve the consent agenda with each of the recommendations listed therein.
Second by Sherry Carter.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, consent agenda is approved. Jim, if you could read off the finalized consent agenda, that would be great.
Sure. The past consent agenda for ALRC meeting August 21st, 2024. Recommend to council to grant item 2, operator license application for Jericho Blades. This was heard before the ALRC Operators Subcommittee and recommended for approval. Item number 4, change of agent, Cracker Barrel Old Country Store, Inc. Item number 5, change of agent, Red Rooster Madison, LLC. Item 6, change of agent, Graduate Madison Lessee, LLC. Item number 7, change of agent, Quick Trip, Inc. Item 8, change of agent, The Great Dane Pub and Brewing Company, Inc. Item 10, entity reorganization, Regent Market Cooperative. Item 11, entity reorganization for Red Robin International, Inc. 12, entity reorganization, Taste of Szechuan, LLC. Item 24, public hearing new license, Sabadi Thailand, Wisconsin, LLC, 2326 Atwood Avenue. This was a missed renewal. Recommend to council to grant with conditions. Item 28, public hearing new license, Walgreen Co. at 7810 Middle Point Road. The condition is 1, Class A liquor sales limited to wine only. Item 29, public hearing new license, Walgreen Co. 606 South Whitney Way. The conditions are 1, coolers will be locked at 9 p.m. and 2, Class A liquor sales limited to wine only. Number 30, public hearing new license, Walgreen Co. 3802 Old Sauk Road. The condition is number 1, Class A liquor sales limited to wine only. 31, public hearing new license, Walgreen Co. 3710 East Washington Avenue. The condition is number 1, Class A liquor sales limited to wine only.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, next up is we have an operator's license for Sean Sobaki. Do we have any registrants for this item? Good. Sean, if you could just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you, and then we will talk to the police chief.
Absolutely. My name is Sean Sabaki. I currently work at Rocky's Liquor Store on East Washington Avenue. There was a concurrent criminal complaint or a charge that has since been dismissed, and that's why I'm here today.
Okay, thank you. Police captain.
So I am showing on a background check. There was an incident that occurred on February 17th of 2024. I show a conviction on July 1st of 2024 for a misdemeanor for resist obstruct a peace officer.
That is correct, ma'am. But the big charge.
Can I have you just wait?
My
So, yes, there was other charges that had been recommended by the police officer, one of which was an attempted disarmament officer. Looking at the report, and that one was indeed dropped. Looking at the report, it appears that officers were called about 10:55 p.m. To an address where Mr. Sobaki and I believe it was either a brother or a cousin were in some type of a verbal disturbance, and that the cousin was asked to leave the residence and was not compliant in doing that. When officers arrived on scene, they ended up making an arrest of Mr. Sobaki's, the other individual involved, however they're related. And at that time when they were on the ground with that individual, handcuffing that individual because he had to be taken to the ground, the officer said that he felt pressure on his back and wait for a brief period of time. He heard the other officer on scene say, "Stand back," while looking behind me, to which he responded, "Stay away." he assumed at this time that Sean Sobaki was behind him. He was unable to observe this as he was working to still handcuff the other individual and facing the opposite direction, kneeling. He then heard that individual, I'm assuming is Sean, state, I fell, and then continued to handcuff this other individual. And at that point, the officer said that he also felt movement on the left side of his duty belt briefly, which where his taser was located, and he also felt movement on the right side of his duty belt where his gun was, where the officer then stated to that individual, "Get away from my gun, back up now." And at that point, he was able to turn around and observe Mr. The Sobaki that is here with us this evening, kneeling behind him, put his hands in front of him, and at that point, the officer went over to arrest Mr. Sobaki, ordering him to get on his stomach and put his hands behind his back. The officer states in the report that Mr. Sobaki refused to do so and continued to keep one of his arms in front of himself. He ordered him multiple times to give up his arms and lie on his stomach so that he could be handcuffed. And that eventually he and another officer were able to place Mr. Sobaki in handcuffs. So he was originally arrested for resist, obstruct a peace officer and attempt to disarm an officer. That attempt to disarm charge was dropped, and the resist, obstruct misdemeanor was a conviction again on July 1st of 2024.
Are there questions for the applicant, Mr. Burshak?
Thank you.
My apologies for the hat, too.
What was your plea on the resisting or obstructing an
No
officer?
contest.
Okay. And was alcohol or drugs involved in this incident?
Again, I bartend and I work at a liquor store, so a little bit of alcohol involved, but again, I tried to diffuse the situation.
Okay.
And again, he's my family, he's my brother, was trying to de-escalate the situation, hence the police report, and I was just trying to do what I could.
Okay. And so, the Central District Captain, when she began her explanation, you wanted to say something. What was that you were going to say?
Pretty much what I just told
Okay.
you, sir. I was trying my best to de-escalate the situation. We all have family and we try to look out for each other. And he's my little brother. Like I tried to de-escalate it the best I could. And involving the police, peace officers, so to speak, I was just simply trying to do my best. That's it, that's all.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Carter? I think you're still on mute.
Sherry, if you're talking, you're muted. Sherry, if you're talking, muted. Okay.
I'm on mute. Oh, for God's sake. Sean, what I wanted to know was, did you fall behind the officer
So,
as it was reported?
as it was reported, yes, ma'am. I have cerebral palsy. I never made an attempt to reach for a peace officer's firearm. Never, not once.
Okay, you just fell.
I just lost my footing, and I apologize profusely for it.
Okay. Okay. And so now that it's my understanding that there is a conviction, correct?
That is correct. It was just the misdemeanor resisting arrest, if I am correct.
And what do you have to do for that?
It was just.
Is
Just
it a fine? Is it a...
I'm not exactly entirely sure, but it was just pretty much straightforward as long as the felony went away. that I plead to that misdemeanor, and I was okay with that, and I signed off on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. And no, that's my question. If I have anything else, I'll come.
And if I'm an open book, if there's anything else you need, I'll be gladly to share any information that you may need.
Thank you. Alder Knox has a question.
Sorry, I'm not turning my things on today. Alder Knox, please.
Yeah, Sean, I guess it's for, I don't know if it's for Sean or the police, but do you have any other convictions?
No, sir. My criminal record is very minimal. A speeding ticket here and there, but nothing to that extent. And I work hard for a living, and I do what I got to do to ensure ends meet, and nothing criminally at all. Yeah, I mean, it's CCAP. You can CCAP at all, literally like a traffic ticket or two. But no, I've minimal criminal record, and hence why when they went forth with the court, hence when we went before a judge, that's they were just like, we got nothing on them. And
Okay, and do you intend to have this expunged from your record?
as far as the misdemeanor goes, again, this is orderly conduct. I can do what I can do, and to the best of my ability to do so.
Okay, and I have no more questions for you.
Thank you. See no, Captain.
Yeah, I did want to get some feedback from the captain, though.
That is correct. There is no other convictions. And then on Alder Carter's previous question about what was given as a sentence, the sentence that imposed was jail for 5 days, and that was deemed time served. So that is complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, you can have a seat. Committee, what is your preference? Mr. Burshak.
Move approval.
I second.
Any discussion? Ms. Farley.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that if denying a license, it would be unless, the offense is substantially related to the circumstances of the job. My one concern with this situation is that within the applicant's role, it's important for them in certain scenarios to be able to de-escalate and work with law enforcement. And it sounds like, based off of what we've heard today, that may or may not have happened, and there was an escalation of sorts. I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Verbeek or who would be most appropriate to answer this question, but I'm curious if there's any resources provided through the city or otherwise that could help the applicant in gaining skills in de-escalation or things like that, especially when alcohol is involved. And if that is an option, I would be in favor of granting.
Presently, that's not something that the city offers.
Any other questions or discussions? Seeing none. Any objections for approval? Seeing none, this operator's license is passed. Okay. Next up on the agenda is an entity reorganization, number 9 for Red Rooster Madison LLC. Oh, no problem. Jim, for item number 9, do we have anyone registered?
We had a Tim Payne, oops, sorry. We had a Tim Payne registered for item 5, which was the change of agent for the same entity. Well, if Tim is here. I don't see Tim in Zoom. The reason that this was not a consent agenda is because they had originally applied with 3 members. Tim is an existing member from the original application. He's requesting to remove the 2 other members, so it's a greater than 50% change of ownership.
Okay, but we have someone registered, they're just not here right now.
Correct. And I did send an email just to let him know that his change of agent was on the consent agenda, but the change of officer was not. I did not get an email back from him since I sent that.
Okay. Alderman Mazzei?
Can we place it at the end of the agenda if he does show up at any moment? Or Chair, is it right to put it to the next meeting, or what would you recommend?
I would recommend that we refer it to the next meeting of the ALRC, and if he comes, we can just reconsider and bring it back forward. Then we won't have to try to remember to deal with it at the end.
All right. I'd like to put that motion forth then.
Thank you. Second by Ms. Farley. Any discussion? Seeing none, item number 9 is referred to the next meeting of the ALRC. Next up on the agenda, we have change of license conditions, number 13 for Gruwal Petroleum LLC at 3859 East Washington Avenue. Jim, do we have any registrants for this item?
Yeah. Gurpreet Singh is registered for this item. And Gurpreet here? Yep, you can come on up.
Yep. Thank you, Gurpreet. If you could just give us an update on where we are with this license. You were here in front of us last month, yes, I believe. Absolutely. And I believe there were some takeaways from that. So if you could tell us where that went, that would be great.
Yeah, so I met with the neighborhood member, and then I was trying to get hold of the elder person. Never got anywhere, and nobody really communicated back to me. So I'm not sure what the next steps are.
I have a motion, so if other people have questions, they can ask.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? It looks like it was trying to connect with Olderfield and then the neighborhood association.
Correct.
And do you currently own 3859 East Washington? Okay. Sorry, I see some hands up. Alder Knox. Alder Knox, if you are talking, you.
Yeah, no, I wasn't talking. I was trying to manipulate my key, my mouse. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So for the applicant, so they want to remove the conditions of not being able to have to serve single cans. Can you tell me why you want those conditions removed?
The request is, we're trying to, we have customer base there, they're asking for that product. We have a Hy-Vee right next to us that they're able to sell. Other convenience stores in the area have a similar license where they're allowed to sell single bottles or cans. Our request is very identical to them.
So basically, you believe that other stores in the area are able to do that, and so that's why you're requesting it?
Request is for the customer base purpose. That is our.
Okay. All right. And have you had any, do you believe that when you talk to the neighbors, what was, I mean, did you hear a lot of their concerns and complaints?
Yeah, they had mentioned, how, it was just weird scenarios that how parks are going to get affected or how.
So could you speak up a little bit? So what was your response to those concerns?
We're trying to follow the process, whatever is recommended by the neighborhood. I requested for documentation, maybe if there is a neighborhood documentation, we can follow. Whatever the right process is, volunteering, cleanups, whatever we need to do to be more effective in the neighborhood. That's the goal.
And you're aware of, you talked to the captain, so you're aware of the number of calls related to this issue?
Not from our side. I'm not sure if there are calls related to that issue, but we have not had any zero calls related to our site. So I'm not sure if there is any data. Nothing has been really shared with me.
All right, thank you.
Alder Mariazzi?
I just wanted to hear from MPD if they had any concerns about this location and if they were reached, if there were the communication.
Yeah, I sent this out to all of the captains on Monday, and they looked over the ones in their respective districts, and I do not believe that there was anything that was put forth back on this application as a concern. I'm not sure. I did not hear back from Captain Marshall about whether or not there was actual contact But he did not write back that there was a concern about the change of this license.
Okay. Ms. Carter?
My understanding that, well, let me just start over. Do you own this location?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you talk about selling single bottles, what are we looking at? Are you talking about single cans of beer? Are we looking at craft beer?
Whatever is supplied by the beer company, the city guidance. I'm not sure what, we're not trying to break any six packs to sell individual cans. We're trying to see what it is supplied by the vendors.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll have to think about that.
Ms. Farley?
Yeah. I have a question for police department. So I'm looking at our notes from Alder Field, and it says that the East MPD command staff shared that calls for service at this location were high compared to other similar businesses in the city in 2023, and that the 2024 data so far looks similar to 2023. That seems to conflict with your comments earlier, so I just want to make sure we understand if there were any calls to service to this location and if we have that information.
So I would have to refer back to Captain Marshall because like I said, I send this out every time we have one of these meetings and it's really the onus is on that captain to give me this information. I can't do every bar, every license in the city. And so I did not receive anything back. I do recall now that there was that specific information given prior. So the information that he is giving in a prior, from a prior meeting would be accurate. I just don't have any updates from them on it. So I'm assuming that because I did not hear from him, that he does not have any concerns going forward. But if that is something, I don't know if the applicant has contacted the police department. I don't know if he can speak to that or if that is something that would need to still happen.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Hold on one second. Okay. Have you contacted the police department?
yeah, when we applied for it, we did contact them. But they weren't there when we took over as of last year on this site. There hasn't been any, I don't know any data prior to that. So.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question. Do you have, what security do you have at your location?
Security wise, as in
Cameras?
cameras, yes. We have close to probably 20 cameras present.
Both inside and out?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Miadzi?
I'm gonna refer to city attorney first before I speak.
Okay. City Attorney McReynolds?
Thank you, Chair. Question for the applicant that I have is, did you actually meet with the neighborhood association?
Correct.
You did?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, we met
Okay.
on site. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm looking at Alder Field's email that was sent today that's in our packet. And he mentioned that restrooms there are locked and out of order because you're trying to prevent drug use. Is that true?
That is incorrect, ma'am.
Can you explain that?
Absolutely, yes. We have bathrooms locked because we have a lot of foot traffic that are just walking in. But we have, talking to the neighborhood, when I met with them about around 4th of July, we changed the wording, and instead of saying out of order, it says customer use only. That has nothing to do with drug use, it has to do with the customer base.
And do you understand that the neighborhood association and the alder are both recommending that the existing conditions stay on your license?
I met with the neighborhood voice. I have sent them a message to Elder and Voice. They're not to set up a meeting. I want to learn what they're offering or what their suggestions are. If there's any documentation, any neighborhood meetings I can be involved in, what can we do to improve our site, right? So the previous data, I believe that is being visioned by the neighborhood or by the elder is from previous owners. And we have no information on what had happened there. So I'm not getting any emails or any confirmations to meet with them. I just, when we met last time, it was said that the elder and the neighborhood wanted to speak. But when I try to contact them, I hear no response. So I'm not sure what the direction I need to take or what the next steps are. But what they need to look at is the current data, right? Data under our management, right? If they're looking at the data that was from previous owners, you can't hold the site, current operation management under that standards.
Okay, well, as the attorney for the ALRC, I did want to point out that what he just said was incorrect. You can take things into consideration. You know this, members of the ALRC, the location, the density, all of the factors around the neighborhood, including the alder's recommendation and the neighborhood's wishes. So you are able to consider all of those things as you make this decision. Thank you.
Alder Miodzi.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, you have a location here on Packers too, right? That you own, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Have you had any, what is the current sale of alcohol there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Yes.
What is the alcohol license? What do you have
We
there?
don't sell beer there. We have a liquor store next to us. So it's, the current site is liquor beer free.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Alder Revere.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome back. You've already heard mentioned by our legal counsel and committee colleague that Alder Field shared with us a communication earlier today. Have you seen that communication yet?
I have not, no.
I think in the interest of transparency, why don't I just read it to you in full? It's one paragraph. And then some of the questions I was going to ask have been asked and answered, but there's at least one that I wanted to ask as a result of the communication, but just to give you, and again, the interest of transparency, the full context. He writes, "Thank you again for referring the 3859 East Washington Avenue change of conditions request during your June meeting so that the neighborhood and I could connect with the applicant by phone and with site visits on July 2nd and July 13th. Mayfair Park neighborhood leadership remains concerned about what they describe as the poorly maintained condition of the property and lack of security measures found at other stores like the nearby Hy-Vee. The Mayfair neighborhood president reports that both of the establishment's restrooms have been locked and out of order for months, and that as a customer, he has not been allowed to use them. After asking on different visits, which the applicant reportedly told him is the case to prevent drug use. I can understand why the applicant wants more flexibility with alcohol sales. However, given these concerns from the nearby residential neighborhood and those concerns about calls for service in this area raised by MPD, I support the existing conditions in the license and ask that the ALRC maintain them. Do you wish to respond to any of what I just read to you? Otherwise, I did have a specific question in there that I want to ask.
I am not sure why the drug use is coming in. It's, but there hasn't, not sure how the property was managed prior to that, but our goal is a customer base. We did talk, the message that was on the restrooms was misleading and sort of out of order. We should have put customer use only. That's been changed since we met with the neighborhood in early July. But there it's not, has nothing. So stepping back, there's a hotel that's turned into apartment building. I believe prior for us, our ownership, that hotel was, for a COVID timeframe, they had used that location for homeless shelter. So some of these background information might be coming from that era. So that is, I believe talking to the owners, they have spent close to $22 million. They just approved the building to be used as of August 1st. So it's there. I mean, it's a clean environment. I mean, neighborhood should know more than all the licensing being approved. I'm not sure what else to add. There's security measures. We have a very similar security that any would have in the area, and we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary. We're just trying to ask for something very similar that identifies the other convenience stores or grocery store, in the same lot, actually. So I think some of the vision that the neighborhood might be stuck with was, I mean, I'm repeating the same thing as what had happened with that site in the past. But you can't hold that against the new management. That's something that I'm expecting the neighborhood to be seeing that, encouraging us, right? So when I'm requesting for meetings with the neighborhood or the elder, I'm expecting us to be more involved. I've met with Mr. Mendez many times, asking questions in the neighborhood for the Packers Avenue location. And I love to do the same thing for, elder for this 3859 location. But there's a communication among you guys. If there is something sent to me, I haven't seen anything. The email I sent to Elder and the neighborhood was in July, early first week of July. And since then, I haven't heard any response.
I understand. Thank you. So my specific questions had centered around, and you had touched on them in your response, but the allegations that the C-store property, not the apartment building, or soon-to-be apartment building, from hotel use is in poor condition. I read the note to mean, and I haven't been there myself, I've obviously driven by your location numerous times, but that it isn't poorly maintained to maybe mean, I don't know what exactly, but I pictured it as perhaps refuse not being emptied around the pumps, I don't know. But you're maintaining that your place is clean and safe in terms of security cameras, et cetera, as any other C-store on the avenue or anywhere else.
Absolutely, yeah. So we get audited.
So you don't think it's an eyesore at all? Like the allegation seems to imply my words, not theirs, but.
Absolutely, sir. So if we're getting suggestions, we're working on those, right? We get audited by Movil every month. So if our score is less below a certain point, we get audited, right? There hasn't, the only point that we have left on is that we were working there one time without a uniform on. Even when we work there, we have to be in proper dress, especially from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. when we're working at that working hours. So some of this information the other information came in as locked doors. They said your locked door. When it's a quiet time, we lock doors. The similar thing happens if you go to Woodman's at certain hours, right? If you're not so busy, you lock certain doors. This location has, 3-4 entries, and all these questions that they were brought up. We're following city policies, right? So if we were to fail any fire department, or anything like that, we will get, we won't pass our tests. So, I truly believe that some of these thinking is from the past, but I am willing to meet with neighborhood, not just a walk-in 5-minute conversation. I want to learn. I want to be involved, right? So for me to be involved, we need to sit down, talk about something. Or when you're walking your dog, you stand there, talk for a few minutes. That is not a efficient time to, you can't make decisions based on just to kind of, you have to be more involved, right? So, but I just don't know how to be more involved with the elder and the neighborhood. I'm asking for, maybe there is a documentation, maybe there are some sort of a prerequisites for the neighborhood. I don't know that, right? So I'm asking for that information. What can I do to make the site cleaner or up to their standards, right? I don't know how to do that till we get involved or have some sort of meeting scheduled, right? So I request that we can meet at the library or we can meet somewhere quiet where it's not distraction, so.
I appreciate all that. I have no further questions. I just want to close by suggesting that no matter what our recommendation is tonight, that you do attempt to reach out to the alder of the district, Alder Field, one more time, regardless of what our decision is tonight. This item will be on the September 10th
Thank you very much.
Common Council agenda for final action. And it would be great if you could hear directly from him what the concerns are related to maintenance and security, so he could
Sure, yeah.
communicate and you can take those actions that you shared with us just now that you want to take and do a better job there in their eyes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Knox.
So you're a relatively new owner of this property?
Say it again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
How long have you owned it?
We took over June last year.
June of last year, okay. I guess, I have a question for legal and the chair, no more for, so I can wait.
Okay. Ms. Farley.
I guess the question I was gonna ask was just asked, so.
Okay. Ms. Carter.
Thank you. So some of the things that that was mentioned in the letters, even when we look at and this is directed towards the captain, even when we looked at what they were saying, I would think that the captain of the district would have first of all responded, so we'll just put that on the table, but also would have gave us some data on, the calls or something to substantiate what was going on at this location. If he purchased it in June, we would have at least gotten the second quarter, part of the second quarter and all of the third quarter from the captain. So what is, I guess, where I'm concerned at, because everybody's perception of cleanliness and all that for a gas station is different. So I'm hoping that in the future, Captain, because I'm rambling and I do have a question for the applicant. I hope in the future we can get them to respond, even if it's the second and third time. That's what I will say. And I'm talking about the captain of the district. To the applicant. So when you bought this location in June, at that time, did you talk to the captain of the district? Between, let's say, between June and August.
I just, one point, Ms. Carter, it was June of 2023. So we've had,
Yeah.
Okay, so we've had them before for this liquor license and went through also all of that at that time
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're off the hook with the rest of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, actually, no, I don't have any.
Okay, so I will have you sit down. Are there any questions for staff? Alder Knox.
Yes, thank you. I guess first for legal, I was just wondering, according to city ordinance or even state, the legality of having your restrooms only available for customers only. Is there some, public access to restrooms? And, I ask this as a older male who sometimes might have to go to the restroom. And I really think it's problematic when you have public restrooms in places that you don't have access to restrooms unless you buy something or things like that. Can you give me a little perspective on that, please?
Yeah,
I
so
know
I
this
think
is a little out of your element, but
that is out of the kind of my expertise and also
Yes.
sort of not mentioned in the state alcohol law or the Madison ordinances regarding alcohol. Anecdotally, I see that quite a bit. Not
I
quite a
know.
bit, but it's not uncommon. So,
okay.
but yeah,
It-
that's not something that would or should
Well, we're
be
talking
taken
about
into
things like
consideration.
security and anything with any establishment, you're talking about customer service. So wouldn't that be applicable? Or are you just saying no? Whether
I
you're
mean-
selling alcohol or gas.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, from whether or not you grant the alcohol license, I don't think there's any laws within the alcohol chapter of the general ordinances or the state law that would require bathrooms to be available to everyone in order to get an alcohol license.
Okay, it seems like you can be real specific about applicable laws, but when we talk about the neighborhood, cleanliness and, how things going around in the neighborhood, I think that would be something that could be included in, I just feel like sometimes, we can include how the neighborhood feels and is it clean enough, but having access to a restroom isn't like within that general
Yeah.
meaning of concern.
So when I think about granting an alcohol license, it's sort of the totality of the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're thinking about all of those things. I guess my point is there's not like, you can't deny it just for that one specific
that.
reason.
I
But
got
like, if you're thinking about an overall, what does the neighborhood consider? What does the, like you said, customer service, if you want to think about like those things all together, along with other things like density or, whatever you're considering, it's kind of the whole picture.
Yeah.
So,
'Cause it actually came up as part of this,
right.
issue. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess for the chair, and I'm sorry I was late, so I probably I didn't kind of get what was on the consent agenda, but I just had a related question. The person talked about feeling that other establishments were allowed to do this. So is Hy-Vee on our agenda somewhere of a license agenda? I'm just a little curious.
No, it's their existing license that is being referred to.
I beg your pardon?
No, it's their existing license that's being referred to. Hy-Vee isn't on our agenda for this meeting.
Okay, because I know there were several groups of larger establishments that were getting their licenses confirmed. So I just was curious if that was one of them. All right, thank you.
Ms. Farley.
Yeah, I think this is really more of an answer to Alder Knox's question. I am looking at the alcohol licenses, or the other licenses on East Washington. There are a handful that also limit the sale of single bottles, including the Quick Trip at 3528, and the Capital One Petroleum at 735. So there are several other gas stations in the area that limit the sale of single bottles.
Ms. Carter.
Yes, I'm just,
Excuse me a minute. Do you have any information on the Hy-Vee by any chance? Since you're,
Since I'm in there.
right.
Okay, guys.
She's sharing information, so.
Yes.
Okay.
You can't ask her, you have to ask the chair. So let's do that for more information. So Ms. Farley will look that up. Ms. Carter will go to questions and we'll come back to Ms. Farley.
yeah, I just have a question, and you said it was on the agenda previously. Did we ever get a direct communication from the neighborhood chair?
Jim, we haven't received anything. It's not in our packet, no.
Yeah, I don't believe we
Okay.
received anything from the neighborhood association.
Okay, and prior to this one, since they were on the chair, on the agenda before, was there anything? I don't recollect the neighborhood actually sending us anything. My recollection is that it's been through the alder. I just want to make sure. Chair, can you have Jim
Alder
look that
Verveer.
up?
Alder Verveer has it in the previous communication in front from which agenda?
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. In response to Ms. Carter's question, when this license holder was last before us with a very similar request, which we denied, it was at our January meeting of this committee, January 2024. And in
Okay.
January of 2024, we did receive a communication dated January 16, 2024, from the president of the Mayfair Park Neighborhood Association, which I could read at several paragraphs, but it's easily available in Legistar, where it states, trying to find a key sentence, I'll just read instead of this whole thing. I am the Mayfair Park Neighborhood Association president, and on behalf of MPNA, we are opposed to this proposed change and have let the applicant know so. The property is requesting to sell single-serving alcohol, and given its proximity to already high density of homeless people dealing with alcohol abuse, the proximity to the currently being developed low-income housing, the proximity to other local liquor and beer selling establishments, and the multiple problems per year associated with this immediate area with panhandling issues and local parks, et cetera, MPNA would like to see this application for change denied. Again, that was
Okay,
dated
thank you.
January 16th of this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alder Knox. And then we're going to go to Mr. Brusick for a motion.
Sorry, I don't have a question.
Okay. Mr. Brusick?
Police are okay with it. I'm okay with it. I move approval. Want a roll call?
So we have a motion on the floor to approve this, removing the conditions for the sale of single bottles or cans. Looking for a second for the motion.
Second,
We have a second.
Sherry Carter.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, Mr. Alder Revere, did you want to?
I'll yield to the maker of the motion if he wishes to say more. All right, well, thank you, Chair, then. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to state that I cannot support the motion. I believe that the alder of the district and the duly representatives of the neighborhood by way of the Mayfair Park Neighborhood Association know the area way better than we collectively do. And I believe that their representations should be the recommendation of this body as well. I'll also mention that when this applicant was before us earlier this year, the then captain of the Madison, the East District of the Madison Police Department, Jamar Gary, did state his concerns with the change in licensed premise, although we haven't heard from the current captain, Ed Marshall, on this one. While I have the floor, let me just also state, I think this would be an answer to a question that Alder Knox had a few minutes ago. The International Building Code does require restrooms be available to the general public. It's an issue that I've dealt with several times downtown over the years. I could cite the section of the International Building Code, which the state and city have adopted by reference. But anyway, under the International Building Code, this applicant could very well be in violation of the Building Inspection Division. If anyone has a complaint that restrooms are locked and unavailable to the public, they should file a complaint if they're interested in doing so with City Building Inspection Division, and they will send an inspector out, and if there's a violation, will issue official notice to correct that and make the restrooms available to the general public. So just thought I'd add that. I don't know if that answered the question completely or not, Alder Knox, but thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Ms. Farley?
I would also like to state that I can't support this motion. However, I want to make sure that the applicant understands that they, at any time in the future, would be able to apply for change of license conditions again. And if they had the opportunity to meet and come to some kind of agreement or terms with the members of the community, I'd be more than happy to entertain that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call has been requested. Jim, if you could do that, that'd be great.
Alder Miadzi?
No.
Alder Miadzi, no. Alder Revere? No. Alder Revere, no. Mr. Brusick?
Aye.
Mr. Brusick, aye. Ms. Farley?
No.
Ms. Farley, no. Alder Knox?
No.
Alder Knox, no. Ms. Carter?
Aye.
Ms. Carter, aye. Chair of the vote is 2 ayes, 4 noes.
Thank you, Jim. This item has been denied.
The motion failed.
Oh, sorry, the motion failed. Are there any other motions from the floor? Alder Verveer.
Thank you. I move to place on file without prejudice. I'll just quickly explain that.
Second.
It makes the office of the city attorney and city clerk's office very happy as it relates to then this migrating to the common council agenda of September 10th. If we have a motion that actually is a formal recommendation that has the affirmative votes of this body or any other city committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Bianzi.
I guess this is for Rivera. Is this, if you place it on file without prejudice, does that mean that, if things were to be fixed in a community meeting was to happen and he came in and, had an agreement with the alder, can they bring it forth to have a look at it or no?
Yes.
No waiting period.
Yeah, there is no waiting
Correct.
period.
No waiting period if it's without prejudice.
Okay. So I just want to interject and just to say that I've seen him in at the place over here, the grocery gas station here on the north side, and there's never been a problem or issue. I know him personally, but with the alder and the community meeting, and also with the captain, it's currently of this district now, Jamar Gary, having issues. I think it's important to see if they could have some kind of communication in order to bring this before the September meeting, if they would have to sit down before then. So I just wanted to interject that this is not anything personal. It's just mostly the process of the alder and the people of the district. So just wanted to put that out there in this space. Thank you.
Ms. Farley.
I'd like to second the motion made by Alder Verveer.
I already seconded it. Sorry.
Everyone's excited. Alder Knox.
Yeah, I didn't hear the second either.
Well, then I'll let Miss Farley take it away.
Speak up, Sherry, speak up.
Alder Bianzi, did you have anything else to add? Nope. Okay, so the motion and the second that is on the floor is to place this item on file without prejudice. Any objections? One objection to be noted by Mr. Bruchak. Seeing no others, this item is so moved. Thank you. Next up, item 14, change of license conditions for Hoops of Dane County Incorporated, doing business as the Locker Room at 1810 Roth Street. Do we have any registrants for this item?
Yes, Dale Beck is registered and in Zoom.
Okay. Dale, welcome to the committee. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the change of conditions that you would like to see with this license.
Yeah. I've owned the place for 27 years. I had music on the patio for about 23, 24 of those years. And then a condition was placed on the license. It was really related to the jukebox at the time. The jukebox had autoplay. And at the time, the bartenders were not turning the jukebox off at night. And the autoplay would crank out the music at all hours of the night. Since then, I mean, we've disconnected the jukebox, but that was, it was my fault for not not understanding that was happening. So anyways, at the time that they put the condition on, I didn't have a problem with it. But now we are upgrading the establishment, and I am becoming a brewery, which I'm going to be open. And so then my locations are going to be brew pubs. So we already are in the process of upgrading that location. So we're going to also upgrade the patio. and have meals, dinner meals, and would like to have ambient music going for dinners and lunches and stuff like that while people are out there having cocktails and eating.
Okay. Committee, are there any questions for the applicant? Ms. Carter?
Yes. Dale, are you changing the name of the establishment or just adding the fact that it's going to be a brew pub?
When we get the brewery open, that's at another location, I will come forward with a new name for the
Oh, okay.
establishment.
So for now, you just want to have outdoor music, right?
I wouldn't, we're not interested on having bands. It's more of just ambient
Yep.
music for the people
Yep.
that are hanging out on the outside. Right now.
Absolutely. Okay. And is the patio in front or in back of your establishment?
It's actually on the side of the establishment. I also own a 2-story building next to the establishment, so
Mhm.
it blocks the sound. And across the street from the patio is a warehouses, and behind it is Oscar Myers, which is not owned by Oscars anymore, but it's a field in back, which was a parking lot, but now they covered it and it's now a grass field.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you, Dale.
Ms. Farley?
Yeah, I don't see anything in our documentation. Did you have the opportunity to discuss this with the alder in your district or any of the community members?
I did not.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Alder Revere.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Dale. Welcome back, albeit virtually. What is congratulations on your new concept. Are you, out of curiosity, did you say you're converting all of your Madison licenses to brew pubs eventually? Or just Rock Street?
They actually already are on the, when you get a brewery application, they're all switched to brew pubs.
So you're now licensed by the State Department of Revenue?
Yes, I have been for ever since I got the approval from the state and the federal for a brewery. They automatically classify your liquor license as brew pubs, even if you're not actively doing so. They are still classified as brew pubs. So the Department of Revenue, they're all listed as brew pubs.
Maybe you should ask this of the deputy city clerk or assistant city attorney, but so you still have Class B combination licenses as opposed to under Chapter 125 licenses issued by the Department of Revenue?
Brew pubs still need to hold a municipal license.
So the recent revision, wholesale comprehensive revision to 125 didn't change that at all? Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Did you have anything else to add, Amber? Sorry, I saw you popped up and then.
No, I was just confirming that is correct.
Thank you for your quick legal research too for us. Thank you. So anyway, back to you, Dale. And I'm somewhat familiar with the neighborhood where this location is. All of the new apartments that are either under construction or planned for this area, how close are any of those to this location, out of curiosity?
They're directly across the other side. So the patio is on one side and the other side of the building is where that development is. So they won't be able to see or hear that side. It's a 3,000 square foot building. It's probably about 15 feet high.
So what you're representing is that you're confident that when those buildings have their certificate of occupancy and you have new neighbors in the future, that they would not be able to hear any of this music, which you're stating you plan to only have as ambient music?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I will just suggest that even though you haven't done so, just so there's no surprises at the next Common Council meeting, that you do attempt to reach out to Alder Amani Latimer Burris and make sure she has no objections, because obviously this will be before her at the next Common Council meeting, and it would be, I think, time well spent if you give her a call or send her an email in case she does have any concerns or questions when she sees this. Okay, Dale?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that. I'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you. And then she could let you know if there's any active neighborhood association that might be interested as well in hearing from you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair. At the appropriate time, I do have a question of the captain.
Okay.
But I'll hold off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Farley?
Yeah, your application for change of conditions states that daytime hours, times, and dates to be, and I can't read what that word is. So just to clarify, are you only planning on playing music during daylight hours?
Yes.
Thank you.
Seeing no questions, any more questions for the applicant? Jim, do we have any other registrants for this item?
We do not.
Okay. Seeing no registrants for this item, are there any questions for staff? Alder Verveer.
Yeah, thank you. Chair, as I mentioned, I had a question for Captain Kamoski, please. Captain, curious if you had heard from Captain Gary, if I presume that this is in the North Police District, if you had heard from Jamar on this one, or any of the lieutenants in the North District.
Captain Gary's on vacation this week, but when I had previously talked to him, because this had been on the agenda previously, he had not had contact with the owner about this and had not had that contact. So I don't know if the owner can speak to if he did indeed contact the police department or not.
Thank you, Captain. If Mr. Beck is still available to be unmuted, could we just see if he attempted to reach out to Captain Gary or anyone at the North Police District? Dale, did you hear the question?
I did not contact the police department.
Mm-hmm. You know Captain Gary personally, correct? From your different locations?
I don't know their names, but I know just about everybody that's in the area that's assigned over the years.
Yeah, so I think it would be time well spent if you reached out to, you heard he's not in the office this week, but reached out to Captain Gary or his, I still call them patrol lieutenants. I think they're called operation lieutenants now, but anyway, the lieutenant there at the North District before the September 10th council meeting as well. I would encourage you to do that so that there's no surprises, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll find out when he's getting back from vacation. I'll do it as soon as he gets back.
Thank you. And then although I thought of one other question and that came to mind, so perhaps massage this condition in a motion tonight. What time period did you say that you would end all outdoor sound?
Probably say 8 p.m.
Okay, that's earlier than the zoning code requirement, so I appreciate that. Would you have any objection if the condition was modified to just simply add the 8 PM to the existing condition?
No, I wouldn't.
You're agreeable to that?
So the condition would be no application music after 8 is what you're saying?
Yes, in so many words, yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? Seeing none, committee, what is your pleasure? Looks like Alder Verveer is working on something.
Thank you, Chair. Then I move to grant the change of license condition, specifically it's condition number 3 on the current, I guess, alcohol and entertainment licenses. So technically, I don't know legally if we can also bring the entertainment license into this since the agenda is noticed just for the alcohol license, but I do see it's a condition on both licenses. It currently reads outdoor amplification is prohibited, so I'd simply suggest that the condition be amended to state that number 3 is outdoor amplification is prohibited after 8 PM nightly. Out of curiosity, well, maybe I should wait for a second, but if I was going to ask either legal counsel or deputy city clerk, could we amend both licenses through that action, or because the entertainment license isn't technically noticed, we could only amend the,
I think both are on the agenda.
oh, are they both?
It's listed right below it.
Oh, you're right, you did list both, thank you, never mind, so it would easily change both conditions, thank you.
I'm sorry, can you, the language again, outdoor amplification
Oh,
is prohibited?
So condition number 3, as I understand it, currently reads, Jim, outdoor amplification is prohibited.
Yep.
So I simply was going to add the phrase, outdoor amplification is prohibited after 8 PM, and then nightly, if that's the right word, for 7 days a week. Yeah.
Ms. Farley?
Second.
Okay. So a second by Ms. Farley. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. Any objections to item 14? Seeing none, item 14 passes. Thank you very much, Dale. Have a good evening. Up next, we have to come back to item number 10.
Yeah. So I made a mistake in when I put the consent agenda together. Item 10, they actually had a background check that was flagged on that. I had emailed the applicant to come back before us in the in Zoom. His name is John Wendt, who's with a liquor beer agent for the Regent Market Cooperative. John wasn't flagged by the MPD, but one of the officers was. Lee Lazar. John in Zoom, are you John Wendt? John, you there? You hear us?
He's unmuted on our end.
Yeah.
I guess I figure I'd just use this time to.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you John Wendt?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if we want the Captain McCoskey to just bring up what was flagged in the background check and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, let's do that. That seems like the least painful. Attorney McReynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Do we need to do a motion to reconsider here? Since, didn't you already approve this in the consent agenda?
Okay.
I believe this was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And Alder Revere has just moved to reconsider. Mr. Bruchak has seconded. Yes, you can.
I was just gonna say, I think there's a good chance that the committee ends up approving of this, notwithstanding the flag. In the case that the committees would like to change its mind, then at that point we could reconsider. But we can opt not to reconsider as our act of approval, if that makes sense. If that's too confusing, then I support the motion as made.
Attorney McReynolds, how do you recommend we proceed?
I think you can go either way. It's just weird to start talking about something that's already happened. So just to be clean, just reconsider it and then, yeah, handle it from there maybe.
Okay. So we have a motion to reconsider and a second. Seeing any objections to reconsidering this? No, just item number 10 from the consent agenda. So item 10 is back on the floor. And if the captain could tell us why this background check was flagged, we can then move forward.
Sure. So this is for Lee Lazar. There was two OWI convictions. The first was from 2014. That was an OWI first offense in Cottage Grove. That was an ordinance violation. In 2020, there was a conviction for OWI second offense with a passenger younger than 16 years old from the Oregon Police Department, the city of Oregon here, and that was a misdemeanor.
Okay. Are there any questions for John? Is Lee Lazar in Zoom at all?
He is, but he's not able to access the mic for some reason.
Well, he wouldn't be. 'Cause I'd need to allow to unmute. Might he be in under a different name? There's no Lee Lazar in the attendee list.
So if
I'm not sure. He said he was in there, but he couldn't get on.
Couldn't. Okay, that's.
I'm not even sure if I'm hearing anybody. What is going on? This is so frustrating.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is to see if Lee Lazar is registered. I don't see him in the attendees list. We see him registered, but to meet it. Yep.
Can you call the number by chance?
John, we do hear you.
Yep.
Is there anything I can do to answer any questions? on his behalf, or do you probably need him?
We need him.
I'm trying to get him to call the number. I told him to look at the registration.
The number to call is listed on the agenda. Just, you know.
So while we are working this technical issue out, let's place this on the table and come back to it. Do we have to do anything for that? I can't remember. Okay, can I get a motion to place this on file if?
On the table.
On the table? Okay, we've got a motion to place this on the table. We have a second to place it on the table. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll come back to this one after our next agenda item. Our next agenda item is item 15. It is the request to extend license issuance beyond the 180-day limit. And this is the second request for the Red Shed. Jim, is there anyone registered for this item?
Yes, Lynn Diefenbach is registered and she's in Zoom.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can. Hi, Lynn.
Yay!
Welcome back. If you can just let us know why we need to extend this again, that would be great.
Construction is taking much longer than anticipated. We finally got the HVAC unit in place today. We were going back and forth with the landlord on the sprinklers, but those are now in place, just not connected to the city water supply yet. So things have been delayed a little. We're hoping by the end of next month.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Ms. Farley.
Lynn, I'm sorry to hear about those delays, and I'd like to move to approve.
Thank you.
Second by Alder Verveer. Any discussion? Seeing none, any objections to item 15? Seeing none, item 15 is so moved. Let's see, do we have? I'm not seeing them in chat. Next up, item 16. Public hearing, new license, Madison Petroleum LLC, doing business as Dion's at 2301 Commercial Avenue. Do we have any registrants for this item?
Yeah, Nick?
Okay. Welcome to the committee. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you are planning to do with the new license.
Yes, actually, my name is Harminder, and I'm representing Madison Petroleum, and this is my second month in the review committee. And last month I appeared and was told to contact my elder and police captain, which I did, and everything went smooth. So I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that I'm running the same business for last 10 years, and I just missed the deadline for the last day, and I reapplied for that.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, let's see. Alder Knox.
Yeah, maybe the applicant can tell us what the feedback was from the alder in the neighborhood.
Yes, actually I contacted Latimer, and we went through the meeting, and we asked everyone if anybody have any issues, but we didn't come upon one, so everything went smooth.
And how many people were at your neighborhood
50,
group
I
meeting?
would say, 50, right? 30, 50 around there. 30 or 50 around there, sir?
All right, thank you.
Ms. Carter? Sherry,
I can't hear you.
you're on mute, I think.
I must love that mute button because God knows I don't know how to get off of it. Your gas station isn't open late at night?
No, we close at 10 o'clock every day, every night. It's 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay, because your application, interesting that you're saying that, is 6 a.m. to 9:30.
Oh, that's the winter hours. We actually have till 10 p.m. for the summer.
For the summer, 10 p.m. For
Yes.
the winter,
It's, yeah, 9:30.
9:30.
Yep.
9:30. Okay. Okay. And hold on. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alder Knox, did you have another question?
No, I did not. Sorry.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, welcome back. Just to confirm, you don't have any existing conditions on your license, do you? Or your
No.
previous license that
No.
you didn't renew yet? There never were any that I can see in the last 10 years.
Nope.
Okay,
Whatever I was doing before, just applied for the same thing.
exactly.
Yep.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I move to grant.
Second by Alder Verveer. Any discussion? Seeing none, any objections? Seeing none, item 16 is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, let's see. I don't see those guys back. So next up, item number 17, new license by Consolidated Management Company, doing business as the Consolidated Management Company at 1000 Edgewood College Drive. Do we have any registrants for this item?
We have a couple. We have all in support, David Campbell in support wishing to speak, Julia Heil available to answer questions, Arhelia Dalla Costa Bem, who I think is in Zoom, available to answer questions, and Nicole Rosa Robinson available to answer questions. All either with Edgewood or Consolidated Management Inc. or Company.
Okay. And do we have Michael Delisle registered, the agent?
No.
Okay. Who is going to be representing?
David Campbell is yes, is wishing to speak. I
Okay,
would
so
say
yes,
David.
so let's bring David forward.
Hello?
Hi, David. Thank you. If you could let us know about the new license, what you plan to do, and how you're representing the business.
Yeah, so my name is David Campbell. I'm with Consolidated Management. I'm the Chief Operations Officer. We signed a contract with Edgewood College this summer to do all their food service on campus. We are applying for a license for the catering for special events, stuff, alumni meetings, board meetings, all those fun meetings and celebrations they do. We start school on Monday, so we're still learning the campus, but we had our neighborhood Association meeting back in July, towards the end of July. And they had some concerns and we're trying to address those. And I think we've come to agreement with them. And from what I understand with TAG or Alder. But yeah, we're just trying to replace the license that the incumbent Sodexo had before us.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Ms. Carter? Sherry, you really like Zoom, you like mute.
For God's sake. At least I'm consistent. Can you expound on some of the concerns they had, considering this is events on a college campus?
The primary concern the neighborhood association had was outdoor service. When we began into this venture with Edgewood College, it was actually prior to us actually physically signing the contract, I believe. So we were making some estimates just to get the application process started so we'd be in on time. We had outdoor service listed as 500 as an estimate number. And since then, we've lowered it to 150 outdoor to meet the demand, not the demands, but the request of the neighborhood association. There's also some concerns with just loud music late at night. So during Monday through Thursday, we would be closing at, or we'd be end service by 9 p.m.
Okay, so that's if it's outside, right? But if it's
Correct.
inside, you could go later?
Correct.
Oh my God. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for explaining that.
You're welcome.
Alder Rivers.
Thank you, Chair. To answer Sherry's question and following up a bit, the 500 capacity for outdoor events, special events with alcohol served, did evoke and raise concern with nearby neighbors. Some of their homes are very, very close. And there had not been an information or a public meeting at that time, but since then there was a meeting. And the neighborhood and the applicant came to an agreement. And the applicant agreed not to have amplified music for outdoor events and to have an earlier stop time Monday through Thursday so that not to, impact kids in the neighborhood who might be going to bed at, 7:30 or something like that. So it was very agreeable and seemed to be an example of effective compromise. Thanks.
I move to grant.
Hold on one second. Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chair. I want to begin by thanking very much Alder Evers for both joining us tonight and for his written comments yesterday with proposed language for conditions. So with that said, I do want to ask the applicant, if I may, I presume is still with us, if he has any objection to the language that's suggested, the specific language suggested by the Alder of the district. Is the applicant still with us? I don't see his name on the screen in the chamber here, but I don't want to start reading the language if he's not clearly.
I raised my hand.
Okay, there you are. Thank you, David.
Sorry.
So the language as suggested by your Alder is number one, no amplified music to accompany outdoor service of alcoholic beverages. And number two, outdoor service would cease by 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Do you have any objection to those two conditions as written?
We do not.
Proposed? Very good. Thank you. And welcome to Madison.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Chair, I'm happy to second Ms. Carter's motion to grant with those two conditions, which I could recite one more time for the Deputy City Clerk if he needs them. No, very good. I do just want to suggest that we not use the phrase school nights because there could be gray area. So if we could say Monday through Thursday, they're both in the proposed language here. Thank you.
Ms. Carter, is that friendly to you?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. So the motion is to grant with conditions, and we have a second on that. Any discussion? See none. Any objections for approval? Seeing none, item 17 is approved. Thank you very much. And I see John is back, and we have that. So let's bring back up item number 10. And I need a motion to take that off the table, please. Ms. Farley,
So moved.
a second for Mr. Bruchak. Any objections? Seeing none, the item number 10 is back on the table. This is the entity reorganization for Regent Street Market Cooperative. Jim, do we have a registrant in the queue? For Lee Lazar.
Lee, are you there?
I'm here.
Excellent, thank you.
Alder Revere.
Thank you, Chair. Just a request before we hear from the applicant. The question of Mr. Verbeek, was the MPD face sheet forwarded to the committee? I don't see it in the packet. Could you direct me to what email you would have sent us the background check? So we have it in front of us. Or if you don't have it, the captain, I'm sure, could email it to you. And you could, okay, great, thank you. That was all, just before we heard from the applicant. If
Okay.
we had that in front of us, thank you.
Lee, if you could introduce yourselves and give us a little background on the business and what brought your flag forward for your background check.
Yeah, I'm a board member of the Regent Street Market Cooperative. I want to be clear, I don't participate in the business operations. I am just a board member, who is on an executive level overseeing the operation of the business. I am a recovering alcoholic. I had the violations that were previously described, and I went through the New Start outpatient rehab program in 2020. I have no problem talking about that, and I hope that my own problems do not hinder the co-op from renewing its alcohol license. I have already said that if this were to be an issue with the committee, I would gladly step down so that they can get their license renewed. But I'm hoping that you guys will approve it and let them keep selling as is.
Thank you, Lee. Are there any questions for the applicant? Alder Revere.
Yes, thank you. That was very helpful. So thank you, Lee, for explaining all that. So you're simply a volunteer member of the board of the co-op, correct? You're not the agent, the liquor agent for this license. That's correct?
That is correct. I'm just a member of the board of directors. That's it.
And you currently serve on the board, or you're a new
Yes,
board
sir.
member?
I've been serving on the board for several years, but I was put in a new position as treasurer.
I see. And perhaps just the paperwork didn't catch up at the city clerk's office. So you're not really.
They told me to do the paperwork, and I did it when I was told.
Very good. Yeah. It's good. So it's not that you're like a newly minted board member. You've been involved in the co-op for some time.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. And thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure it isn't that easy to talk about, especially publicly with us. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome, but I'm committed to the organization, and that's why I'm willing to do it.
Yes, it's an excellent organization that you have in your neighborhood there, a gem. So, yeah, thank you for again sharing your recovery story and continued success with that. And I don't see any further questions in front of me. I'd be happy to move to grant with all that information now.
Ms. Farley?
Second.
So we have a motion to grant and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Brushock?
Sure. So I would, as far as I understand, our role in making licensing determinations in these background checks refers to licensing determinations, but this is an entity reorganization. They want to add 3 new officers, remove 1 officer. So I guess my question is the committee involved in the licensing when we take up a question like whether to approve the entity reorganization in a way that's relevant to the conviction review stuff?
Attorney McReynolds, can you answer that?
Yeah, so the question is, should we even be hearing this? Is that your question?
I don't doubt that it's appropriate to hear it, but it seems fundamentally kind of different than when we talk about operators' licenses.
Oh, yes, it is different than operator's license. We do get background checks for all owners. I forgot exactly how it's phrased, but basically owners and officers of establishments also do a background check form. Those don't come up as frequently as operators' licenses, but they are things that the ALRC can consider.
So we're allowed to deny things based on convictions if we meet certain deny licenses if we go through a certain process or make a certain finding. But denying this wouldn't be the same as denying an operator's license. So I'm curious as to whether our process even applies for an entity reorganization.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's something that I can look into further. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think in this case, I don't think we need to know tonight, but
okay.
In the future it might come up.
So this is something we might want to take a note to add to the how the ALRC operating committee.
Yeah, that's a good place.
For a discussion for
Yeah.
that to be in there and what we need to do around these items.
All right. Thank you. Nothing further from me.
Great. So we have a motion to approve, a second. Any objections to approval? Seeing none, item 10 is approved. Let's see. And thank you very much, Lee, for coming in for that, and John. Thank you. Item number 18 is next, which is a public hearing new license for Surham Retails 3 LLC doing business as Regent Street Mini Mart at 1401 Regent Street. Do we have any registrants for this?
We have one registrant, Doug Carlson, and he's in Zoom. I think the applicant had sent a message close to the meeting saying that they wouldn't be able to make it and asking if we could refer it to next month's meeting. But Doug is registered in Zoom.
Since we have this on the agenda and Doug sat through this whole meeting, Doug, if you want to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are representing today, that would be great.
Chair and committee members, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak after waiting for 2 hours. I do appreciate that. I'm Doug Carlson. I'm the president of the Vilas Neighborhood Association. We have considered this as a Vilas Neighborhood Association council. I have filed comments. I'll be very brief on those and allow any time for questions. Just summarizing, we had discussions. We took a vote among 3 options that the council would like on this proposed license. One was support the license as applied, which would be Class B and Class C beer and hard liquor. Option 2 was support, and there were 0 votes for that. So we're registering and opposed to what's on the table tonight. Option 2 is to support a Class B license for beer only per the original application that was considered on the 26th of June by this committee with the conditions provided by this committee. There was 1 vote for that option. And the third option was supporting no Class B or Class C license for this establishment and retaining its current Class A beer only license with existing conditions. So the Neighborhood Association is opposed to granting the license before you tonight, or any Class B or C license for this establishment at this time.
Committee, are there any questions for the registrant? Ms. Carter. Oh, she's talking to get on mute.
I'm consistent. Doug, can you tell me, can you expound on why not?
When the original Class A license was granted for this establishment, which opened in 2023, the neighborhood is very clear that beer and wine only, no hard liquor. The conditions placed on this establishment, which is a convenience store primarily, were consistent with the Quick Trip located at the corner of Monroe Street and Randall, that had conditions of no hard liquor, no keg sales, and no sales of bottles over 24 ounces. And the ALRC provided those same conditions on the Class A license that was granted in 2023. Since that time, the establishment has come back seeking a Class B license to provide some on-site consumption. Our reaction is that we still want no hard liquor, and at this point, a Class B license, which would allow on-site beer and wine consumption at a convenience store, we also think is inappropriate.
So you don't want, the neighborhood doesn't want wine or beer at this location?
On a Class B license for on-site consumption, we request that the current Class A license, which is a beer and wine only license, be retained.
Okay. And is there, other than the fact that, was there any other incidents that has made the neighborhood come to this conclusion, or this is just what the neighborhood wants?
I'll be brief in the history. They originally came with a Class B beer and wine only license and wanted a side patio. There was a neighborhood meeting held in late May. There was substantial concerns about the noise, about monitoring a side patio, which was not visible from the front of the store, and about just being on right off a campus, potential underage consumption. This was considered by the LRC on June 26th with several conditions added, which would be no side patio, no home football game, on-site consumption, and some other conditions. Sometime after the June 26th, and we were not aware of it, the application was changed to also include hard liquor and Class C wine. And we were not notified of that, and that has brought the neighborhood council to take our first actual action. We had not provided a position on this before. It asked for referral until this could be considered further. At this point, we're in opposition to any Class B or C license at this establishment.
Thank you. I think it's interesting that we're so concerned about underage consumption, but not old age consumption. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the registrant? Okay, seeing none. Committee, any discussion? Alder Evers.
Thank you, Chair. I support the neighborhood in this instance. As you recall, when the original license application came before this committee, there was some debate as to whether to allow hard liquor sales at this location. The history, though, of this location, the proximity to the college campus, is such that at Open Pantry and every other business that has been at this location, hard liquor has not been included in the license. And LRC saw fit to circumscribe Quick Trip on Monroe Street, at Monroe Street and Randall, in a similar fashion. And the neighborhood feels strongly that this is reasonable. I'm sure there is concern about old age consumption, harder, but the proximity to the college campus in a neighborhood that has had to deal with underage consumptions and the ramifications and consequences of that has reasonable concerns about quiet and just trying to keep things reasonable, as I said. But the neighborhood bent over backwards. Doug is being humble. He actually met with the neighborhood and tried to come up with a compromise and a place of agreement, because the nearby neighbors were clearly opposed to on-site consumption. They considered unusual, did not see other examples of mini marts and convenience stores where on-site consumption took place. But what happened in the interim, after it was referred to allow for a neighborhood meeting, is that applicant changed the application to include hard liquor. Something that had already been determined 2 years earlier that the neighborhood didn't want. And they made this change without consulting with the neighborhood, without consulting with the alder. If you have a process, as you do at LRC, a procedure and a protocol that places due emphasis upon communication with the neighborhood and with the alder, and the applicant fails to do so, seems to me there should be some consequences. And I would urge this committee to deny this application for a Class B and Class C and stick with the status quo and allow the applicant an opportunity to reestablish a positive relationship with the neighborhood. I think after a year, the applicant could come back and this issue of on-site consumption of beer and wine, not hard liquor, I don't believe the neighborhood would agree to that, but that can be taken up later. But things are messed up now, and it's the fault of the applicant, not of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Ms. Farley.
Do I understand that the applicant is not present today?
That is correct.
Okay. I feel like I may recall this from our previous meeting a year or two ago. Was this an applicant that required a translator?
It was not.
Okay. Thank you.
So committee, any further discussion? Alder Miadzi.
I'm just a little curious. Isn't our job to refer it if the applicant is not here?
Honestly, we can do whatever we want. Since it's it's a noticed meeting.
I'm gonna refer to my colleagues and
Ms. Carter.
I can refer this to Alder Verveer, but I would refer it to the next meeting. We do have the information today regarding not only the neighborhood association, but also the Alder statement. And I think we have enough information that when they come to the next meeting, we'll be able to make a just decision on their application. But there's other hands up. That's just how I feel.
Alder Knox.
I would second that motion. To refer.
So we have a motion to refer and a second to the next meeting of the ALRC. Is there any discussion on that? Alder Miadzi.
I just think it's our protocol. I know that we have a lot of information, but still, the person that does the application should be able to make hear what we decide as a body. So yeah, we do have enough information. It shouldn't take us long, but still, I think it's only right that the applicant be present. Thank you.
Alder Knox, did you have anything?
I did, but the order stated what I said. I think they should at least have an opportunity to represent themselves.
Alder Evers.
Thank you, Chair. I understand where this is going, but I will say that the applicant had every opportunity to even email this committee and explain where they stand on this issue. In email communications with Doug Carlson, the applicant defended this maneuver to add liquor after it had been referred, changing their application to add liquor. That to me, and did so without communicating with the neighborhood, and did so without communicating with the alder. Defended it, saying Leopold's is able to sell liquor. And as you recall, the applicant's husband at the last meeting said Festival Foods is able to sell liquor. Why can't we? I think it's incumbent upon the applicant by the way, applicant had every opportunity to explain themselves, knowing that this had been referred. It had been referred from council and sent back to ALRC, and they chose not to respond in writing or send someone on their behalf. Having violated the trust of the neighborhood, now choosing not to come to this meeting and not letting Doug Carlson or myself know. This absence of communication is part of the problem, committee members. I think it would be within your purview to take seriously the concerns that have been expressed by the Vilas Neighborhood Association president and myself, and hold the applicant accountable for what they have done so far. If it's not disingenuous and devious to change an application to add something that they clearly know the neighborhood did not want based on the original application of some 2 years ago, and not communicate with the neighborhood or the alder, and then not show up to explain themselves, Are there any consequences for that kind of behavior? I don't know what more information you actually need. And so I would ask that you would deny this application as it stands and maintain the status quo and encourage them to come back in a year. And in the interim, try to repair their relationship, their working relationship with the neighborhood and with their alder. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Miadzi.
Given in light of what the alder said, is there any way you could place it on file without prejudice, given this new information?
Well, right now, the motion is, and a second, is to re-refer it to the next meeting. So we need to dispense with that motion. Ms. Carter.
I would say I would like to hear from our attorney on regarding making that decision without them here. And then I have a question for Jim. Did the applicant state why they weren't coming to this meeting? But first, the attorney.
There's no requirement that they be present if the meeting was properly noticed.
Okay, thank you. And then, Jim?
To answer your question, so it did looks like she, or looks like Minu emailed actually on Friday and said, I may defer it to next meeting. I am very occupied with my business and have not had the time to work on it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So I will, if the body wants to discuss this further, I will be more than happy to withdraw my motion. If there is, support to discuss this further, I see Ms. Farley has her hand up. And so does Alder Miazzi. So let me see what they want, and I might bring my motion back.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Farley.
Yeah, I mean, given that the applicant did reach out to the city or the clerk's office, I would encourage my colleagues to provide a little bit of grace with the applicant so that we can address this at the next meeting. Definitely hear the concerns of the alder and the community, but I think it's important for us to have the applicant included in the conversation for questioning if possible.
So let's do this. Let's do a roll call on the current motion, which is a re-refer. If that fails, we can then proceed down a different path. So Jim, if you could do a roll call, that would be great.
Sure. Okay, Alder Revere. Aye. Alder Revere, aye. Mr. Bruchuk. Mr. Bruchuk, aye. Ms. Farley.
Aye.
Ms. Farley, aye. Alder Knox.
Aye.
Alder Knox, aye. Alder Miadzi.
Aye.
Alder Miadzi, aye. Ms. Carter.
Aye.
Ms. Carter, aye. Chair, the vote is 6 ayes, no nays.
Okay, so this item is referred to the next meeting of the ALRC. Thank you, everyone. Up next, item 19, public hearing new license for Mega Marts LLC. Let's take up 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. These are all the Metro Market licenses. So Metro Market number 434 at 6010 Cottage Grove Road, 269 Junction Road, 2502 Shopko Drive, and 1312 South Park Street. These are new licenses because they missed their renewal. And we re-referred them from the last council meeting because their paperwork was not all in order. Jim, is everything in order tonight?
Yep, everything is in order as of now.
Okay. Do we have any registrants for this item?
Yeah, we have an Emily Williamson who's registered for all of the items, as in support wishing to, or is available to answer questions.
Okay. Is Emily here tonight? Thank you. Hello, Emily, if you could introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of about Metro Market and the license today.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you all for accepting emails from me over the past couple months. So I appreciate all of the support. We have 5 stores in the Madison Market. I believe you missed mentioning one address for our store 131. So there are 5 stores on the application here tonight. We've been corporately operating in the Madison market for over 20 years. Across the city of Madison in the past 4 years, we've invested over $10 million in our stores, employing nearly 600 full and part-time associates. We are also very committed to the community. So to just give you a couple examples of that, these 5 stores in Madison so far through last month have donated over 52,000 meals back to the community. And we've also made donations in the first quarter of the year to both Second Harvest Food Bank of Southern Wisconsin and Hope House. So we're very committed to the city of Madison doing business here, and these licenses are very important to us as we work to deliver on our full, fresh, and friendly shopping experience. Anything else you'd like to know?
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Ms. Carter.
Well, I will try to be fair tonight, even though my pick and save at Cahill is not a Metro Market.
Well, we appreciate you shopping with us.
Good save, good save. Did want to know what happened that you missed the renewal.
Yeah, and unfortunately, our team was just late in submitting the renewal, so we did apply for that new license. The date I have is 6/13 is the date that paperwork was received and resubmitted.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Knox?
Thank you. Sorry, try to get on a video so you guys can, I'm having a little problem with my video right now, you guys, so. But anyway, I'll proceed. So does all of your stores pretty much have the same, you know, do you have the same conditions on your stores that you're aware of?
So we don't have any conditions on our stores as far as I'm aware. We do have a Class B license at Metro Market Cottage Grove with the option to serve beverages inside the store. The rest of our stores do not have that.
Okay, so I had a recent experience at the Park Street. Is that one of your stores? The Pick and Save on Park Street?
Yep, Pick and Save Park Street is one of our stores.
And I talked with one Alder Revere a little bit about it. And I was kind of surprised that when I was in the store, there was a gentleman a couple ahead of me that had purchased 2 single cans of alcoholic beverage, and I heard the person, the 2 counter people talk about that was the second time he had been in the store, and he was, they believed, a little bit inebriated. I don't know, but that's what I heard. And it kind of surprised me because I guess generally, I would think a supermarket would sell, larger quantities and not single. So are you aware of if your stores sell single beverages?
We do sell single-serve units at all of our store locations, including that store you mentioned on Park Street. I do have Terry as our store director, so we've got a great team here tonight as well. That store, we're really invested in that store. Terry's a seasoned store director. He's really working hard on that store, making sure that we're supporting the shoppers there as well as our associates at the location.
Okay, well, let me let you know, I shop at that store, and I very, very much appreciate you guys continuing at that location. I do all my shopping there purposely to support your store, and generally is pleased with it. I guess I was just surprised, and I probably don't have any more questions for you, but I'll probably have some questions for our police officer to just see if they've had any, issues or concerns about single sales of beverages. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I just want to say thank you for shopping, and let me know if there's any time that I can meet you at that store or set up a meeting with Terry, our store director at that store location too. We'd be happy to show you around.
Oh, you don't have to show me around. I'm there pretty regularly. Okay.
We can give you the behind-the-scenes tour.
Thank you.
Ms. Carter? Her hand is up. She is.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
I'll just confirm that I looked at all the licenses previously and there were no conditions on any of the licenses.
Are there any further questions for the applicant? Alder Verveer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, we're considering all these in mass at this
Yes.
time, correct? Yeah, thank you. Well, welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
Nice to see you in person after our communications over the last several weeks. Since it was already raised, the issue of the future of the South Park Street store, could you publicly share with us what the long-term timeline is for that store as you understand it, or anyone else, the huge team that you brought with you, if there's someone better to speak to that, but
So I'm only going to be able to speak to the license and the application. The license that we're applying for today would take us through next June for all of those locations.
June 30th, 2025. So at this point, none of you, including the store director, have any idea how long that location will be in operation?
We are continuing to provide that full, fresh, and friendly service throughout our open hours, and that's really our focus, making sure that that community is provided continuous grocery service.
I love your lingo. Do you still call it click list?
We call it pickup now.
Okay. I'm trying to know the Roundy's lingo that I've dealt with years ago.
Absolutely.
Oh, all right, maybe Kroger, I should say, but thank you. Okay. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I guess we have to go higher up the corporate ladder to get that answered, perhaps. Thank you. That's all. I had no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
I move approval.
Second for Mr. Bruchak or Alder Knox. I think that's why he had his hand up. Oh, yes. Yep. So, okay. So we have no further questions for you. So you can
Excuse me.
What?
I did indicate that I had some further questions.
Is it for our
But
applicant or is it for
not for the applicant.
Okay,
Right.
so I'm gonna send the applicant, let her go sit back down, and then we're gonna move into questions for staff. So, okay, any questions for staff? Alder Knox.
So all of these stores, none of them have any conditions. Is that correct?
That's
That
correct.
anyone's aware of?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. I guess I wanted to ask a question from the captain and see if there have been any and she may not have even, explored that possibility, but I really would like to know if there have been any, what the calls have been there and if they've been alcohol related. Maybe you have some feedback on that, Captain.
So I did, when these were all on the agenda for last month, I did touch base with all of the captains to see if there was any issue that explaining that it had expired. And so that's why they were applying for a new license. And none of them had any issues with any of the pick and save and the alcohol sales in their districts. And just reviewing the calls when we get those calls, those reports that you all get. And I go through those as well. I am also not seeing the calls that are related to like over alcohol sales or over alcohol consumption or selling to intoxicated persons or whatnot. Largely those calls that we're getting for those stores involve like retail thefts and things like that you would expect at a store.
The audience today, and she'll be up on stage.
And they wouldn't happen to be retail theft of single can alcohol, would it?
That I do not recall seeing those from the pick and saves. We do have that issue at other supermarkets in different parts of the city, but I am not recall seeing those at the pick and save stores.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Farley.
Point of privilege, I need to step away for about 5 minutes. Are there any issues with quorum?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Okay, committee, the motion on the table is to approve as is 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 23 with a second. Any further discussion? Alder Knox, did you have something or just is your hand still up? Okay, I don't see any hands up.
If I could just to make a note, so for this one, the Common Council conditionally approved it based on whatever ALRC decides. So rather than this going back to Common Council, if with the approve, which is the motion, it would just be approved from here, and that would be the final granting of the license.
Yes, and then you would be able to issue the licenses, correct?
Once they get all the sign-offs from all the agencies, yes, they'd be able to get the license.
Okay. Any objections to approval of these items? Seeing none, items 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 are approved. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Thanks. Up next, item 25, a public hearing for new license for Bakery Garibaldi LLC at 4802 Anamark Drive. Do we have any registrants for this item?
We do. Eric is registered.
Oh, and coming on down. Hi, Eric, if you could introduce yourself and give us a little idea about your business and what you're planning on doing over with El Torito Cantina and Mexican Eats.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Eric Francisco. I'm here with my mom. So we just opened this new location. It's going to be our third location, thankfully, here in Madison. We currently own Garibaldi here on Butler Street. We also have a Carol Mexican Grill on East Washington, but this is a new establishment that we're just opening up. We actually opened up just last week. We started just with food sales, but the concept that we want is to have food and drinks. We don't want to do too much on the drink side, but we do want to offer it as a meal. Say if a person wants to have a margarita, pina colada, or like a beer with their tacos or something. It's kind of the idea that we have here for this establishment.
Okay. And did you meet with the alder of the district or talk to them?
I did not meet them personally. I did spoke with them over the phone.
And did you have a neighborhood meeting?
Yeah, we hung up our sign, but nobody showed up.
Okay. And did you talk to the neighborhood association at all separately?
That I
email
don't
or anything?
recall, the association, I don't recall on.
Okay. Committee, do we have any questions for the applicant? Ms. Carter?
Yeah, so you did not have a neighborhood meeting. However, you did put up the informational signs, correct?
Yeah, the orange sign that they gave us,
Yep.
we did put that up on the window.
And what was the hours of that you put on there, the date and hour?
I don't recall out of memory, if I'm honest.
Okay, that's okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
What was the second business? You have the one on Butler, and where was the other one that you own?
On East Washington, Vaquero Mexican Grill. It's next to AT&T.
Okay,
It's a
yep, I've been
plaza.
there. Okay, yep. Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Ms. Carter?
If there's no more questions, I move approval.
A second by Mr. Bruchak. If you want to go have a seat, you can.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Any discussion? Alder Miadzi?
Sorry about that, Chair. I think you missed me. I think I raised my hand before that, but it's okay.
Okay, sorry about that. So did you have a question for the applicant, or were you just going for the second?
Going for the second, Chair. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Is there any discussion? Seeing no, so we have a motion for approval and a second. Seeing no discussion, any objections to approval? Seeing none, item 25 is approved. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Item number 26, public hearing, new license, True Legacy Hospitality LLC, doing business as Rocky Rococo at 4556 Monona Drive.
What happened to item 24?
That was on the consent,
It was?
on the consent agenda?
Yeah, that's what I have down. It was part of the consent agenda.
There's a late renewal that had no conditions on the previous license.
Thanks. So Jim, for item 26, do we have any registrants for this item?
I do not see anyone register for this item.
Do we have anyone here for this item?
No one's in Zoom.
No one's in Zoom, seeing no one here. Ms. Carter?
Jim, is this another one that missed the renewal?
No, it's not. I think this is a
This
new.
is the new one.
Yeah, and this
Okay.
is new ownership for a license.
Okay, then I move that we refer it to our next meeting.
Okay, so item 26, we have a motion to refer this item to the next meeting of the ALC, and we have a second from Alder Verveer. Any discussion? Alder Riadzi?
Miss me again, Chair.
Sorry. He gets me because I can hear him.
Well, for that matter, let's also say that Ms. Farley had her hand up too.
Yep.
So let's make it a 3-second instead of just a second.
Okay, seeing no discussion, seeing no objections.
Who's with Robert Rules of Order? Who says?
What? Oh, I'm losing my mind tonight. Item 26 is referred to the next meeting of the ALRC. Next up, item 27, new license, Superstar Catering, doing business as Sequoia at 1843 Monroe Street. Do we have any registrants for this item?
Yep, and they are here in
Yay.
person,
Come on down.
hiding behind the pillar.
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening. If you can introduce yourself, give us a little bit of information about the business and what you're planning on doing with the license.
For sure. My name is Zach. I am the agent for Superstar Catering LLC. We are a Japanese ramen sushi restaurant on Monroe Street. I was the original owner for the past 5 years, and we just changed ownership this year. And I will stay on to operate the business with the new business owner. Here to answer any questions if you guys have.
Ms. Farley.
Yep, with the change in ownership, are you expecting any changes in the way that the business is operated?
No.
Any, Ms. Carter?
Yeah, so are you going to be running the restaurant or are you running the caterings?
We don't do catering. It's just the name of the business.
Oh, that's just the name? Okay, never mind.
Jim, are there any restrictions on the current license?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'll look at it. There are not.
Okay. Ms. Farley?
In that case, I thank the applicant for their time, and I'd like to also move to approve.
Second
Alder Miyazzi, this is your time.
Too late, Mr. Bruchak got it.
I did look for a hand up,
I
too.
did, I looked. So right now, we have moved to approve with no conditions. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any objections? Seeing none. Item 27 is approved. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, guys. Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Thanks. Okay, so before we move on to item 32, did we ever get anyone for item 9?
I don't see anyone in there. I've not gotten any emails. I sent a second email that said, we're referring unless you show up before the end of the meeting, and I've not heard it.
Okay, and we already referred it, so we're good on that. So we will move over to item 32, a discussion item regarding implementing a list of standard conditions the committee applies to licenses. Do we have any registrants for this item?
We do have one, Mr. Michael Donnelly.
And is he here? Oh, he even came and sat through the meeting.
I think it'd be a little crass for me not to at this point.
I thought you'd be in Zoom. If you
I
could
hate having
introduce yourself and tell us what you're trying to do before the committee today.
I would be happy to. So my name is Michael Donnelly. I'm a concerned citizen of Madison, Wisconsin, and spent a little bit of time in this room in the past with the LRC. The last thing that I'd wanted to work on that I didn't quite get done before leaving the committee was working on two aspects of standardizing our conditions. So it is regularly the practice of this committee to add conditions to licenses, and I think that is one of the powerful and effective tools that the committee has, particularly addressing licensees in sensitive areas and inexperienced licensees who might be good operators, might be bad operators, time will tell. The challenge is when we regularly apply conditions, we don't always, or I'm sorry, when you regularly apply conditions, you don't always do so uniformly. And so I have two recommendations I'd like to make. The first one is to see which of the things that you regularly apply as conditions that could instead be moved into Madison General Ordinances. Then there's no issue of having to deliberately craft conditions each time. The second, and these are parallel ideas, it's not one or the other, is to maintain a menu of standard conditions so that when you need to apply a condition to a license, instead of having to define it from scratch, you can go to the menu and say, we'd like to use the hours condition with this as the end time for service. And I have provided a set of examples for that menu, which Mr. Verbeek has emailed to you. For anyone watching, it's also attached to the Legistar item for this item on the agenda. And the examples that I wrote are based on current license conditions. When there's variants, I've tried to find whatever is the most standard version that's used frequently and is ideally relatively easy to read. What questions do you have?
Mr. Bruchak, any questions for the applicant, please?
Okay, number one, when was this put on Legistar?
Recently.
Your document. What?
Recently,
Okay.
like after this meeting started.
Okay, so I
You
did.
didn't miss anything. I just dallied in sending it into.
So I think I'm going to probably recommend to the committee that we not vote on this today.
You don't even have anything to vote on. This
Okay,
is just a
good. I'll
discussion
look them over. Do you see us putting a set of our menu of standard conditions into the ordinances and then like limiting ALRC's ability to consider conditions that aren't part of that menu?
I wouldn't recommend that. I think that there are always going to be some exceptional cases, but I think that a standard, and I don't think you necessarily need to put your menu of standard things into ordinance. It would merely be a tool for standard operating, so you could refer back to it. I think it's the ones where you can say, we never want a gas station to sell liquor. You should just make an ordinance that says gas stations can't sell liquor.
Right.
Hold on one second.
So we have some conditions that we use standard for downtown, for example. With the, would you recommend that those conditions that limit the size of the bottles and the individually sold bottles and the domestic premiums and the domestic sub-premiums and all of that language be codified in the ordinances, since we pretty much do that every time?
That would be the ideal. You could establish an overlay district and say that any license in that overlay district has those conditions.
That would make it it would elevate these conditions to the level of like public policy. You know, it'll probably make the papers if we start talking about another overlay district. And that probably
Correct.
would be a good thing, right?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for now. Thanks for coming back.
Of course.
Ms. Farley?
Thank you for preparing this document, Mr. Donnelly. I think that I just would like to add, and I know that this is something I reached out to Jim a few times about, in the spirit of standardizing our conditions. It's really difficult for us to identify conditions on other licenses that are in the same geographical region as another, or as the application that's before us. We are able to pretty readily search for the same street, but it's really impossible to see within, a certain radius or even within a certain area, other licenses and other conditions that are associated on those licenses. So in addition to this, I think that is something that we should also address. And I do think that an overlay district would address that issue. But it's something that I'd like to see overall.
So in situations we have MGO, and I forget it was where gas stations with pumps cannot sell hard alcohol, but they can sell beer and wine. How did we get that into ordinance and have that be successfully not against state laws? Does anyone remember that? That's one where we've codified that into ordinance versus some of these other things. And there's always those weird questions around conditions and state law and accepting that and those type of things and making ordinances. So maybe this is a question for Attorney McReynolds? What our options are?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I think that we can take Mr. Donnelly's idea and suggestions and any others from the ALRC, and then my office would need to look into them and see what is possible to put into ordinances. I know this one from with the everyone's talking about the fuel ordinance, you know, that was before my time, so I'm not sure exactly the history of that, but we can look into the realm of possibility here on those things, depending on the will of the committee, and then also you know, sponsoring alders who would want to sponsor this type of legislation.
Mr. Donnelly.
So I have seen two categories of challenge with state statutes. One is, or I guess with making ordinances, one would be if there's expressly something in the statute that says not to. The only one I really know of there is things that limit the hours at which you can serve without the applicant consenting. The other category that I know there has been struggle with is when it was challenging to precisely define the conditions that would trigger the ordinance, but I considered that a feature of the situation, not a bug. The committee was trying to say you couldn't sell alcohol at pharmacies, but there was no definition for what a pharmacy was. And some people said, well, it's fine if it's a grocery store that has a pharmacy in it, but not if it's just a pharmacy. And that floundered due to that lack of definition, which I thought highlighted the fact that there wasn't actually a clear line there.
Ms. Farley.
Does a meeting of the operating subcommittee require a motion?
No, it's our own internal meeting. We just need to put an agenda together and then notice that, and when we have it.
Okay.
So,
And in that case, I feel like that is our action step here. I feel like that makes the most sense for us to kind of hash through this, and also gives us time to review the document.
Yep. Attorney McReynolds, if you could look at this and see, and so we'll work on getting together. I guess we came out of this meeting with two things for the subcommittee to look at. And maybe if you could put this on there and give us some guidance for this, and we will I'll work with Jim to get some options together for getting that committee, meeting of that committee there together. There any other questions? Mr. Bruchak.
A proposed ordinance can't come to this committee unless it's referred by the council, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it could be challenging then for us to, well, I'll think about it.
So I think what we could discuss is these are the things that could go as an ordinance if we got a sponsor to bring forward the ordinance, like one of the alders on the committee. These are the things that couldn't go in ordinance, but we could add and do as we see fit. And in the subcommittee meeting, we can divide that up and have a discussion about it. But wouldn't be talking about an ordinance. We'd just be talking about these things and then say, oh, this could be an ordinance, and then send it off with an alder that wants to sponsor it.
So the method by which a member of the committee could propose his or her own version of this legislation would probably be to offer like a substitute amendment to an already referred ordinance proposal. You know, because you couldn't. I'll think about it more and maybe talk to
Attorney McReynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of the ordinances are drafted by the city attorney's office. So it could be, you know, ideas for ordinances come to us in different ways. Sometimes it's by staff members, sometimes it's kind of comes out of discussion at a committee like this, and sometimes it's directly from an elected official like the mayor or an alder. So there's no only one way to do things, but definitely whatever ends up happening, I will probably be the one that ends up drafting it. And then, you know, there will be a sponsor who wants to sponsor that specific legislation. And then ultimately they'll be the one approving the way that it's drafted and how it goes forth from there.
Thank you. And we won't overwork you with drafting requests, so don't worry about it.
Are there any other discussion points or questions? Mr. Donnelly?
One other plug, which is even if you don't take any other action, there is nothing stopping any individual member of the committee from hanging on to this PDF and using it. And when the time comes to make a motion, you could pull it out and say, I move to grant. Please apply the no single servings conditions from Michael's document.
Yes. Alder Revere.
Thank you, Chair. I've been waiting all night to say welcome back, Michael. I can't thank you enough for all of your work. I'm going to try to embarrass you later in the meeting under the adjournment motion, so I'll save remarks for later. In terms of all the years you've toiled as public service in this venue. But as it relates to this document, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's, as you're going out the door, you literally are continuing your public service and helping us that are on the committee, your former colleagues, and all of your successors and our successors in this work. So thank you very much. One of the things I was going to say was more or less just uttered by you, and that is a suggestion that we keep this document and refer to it at our monthly meetings. And I was wondering, did your service go back? I mean, it's gone back, you know, a dozen years or so plus. Did you serve when Catherine Polinsky was the alcohol policy coordinator?
Or, no, I wasn't.
Or under Mark Wolf
I
only?
went to a bunch of meetings while.
You were a journalist then covering us.
Right.
Yeah. So Catherine Polinsky, as I recall, prepared a document similar, different, but similar to the one that you prepared for us, in that it was an attempt to standardize conditions, not the deep dive you did in terms of should we consider codifying some in the MGOs and so forth. But she came up with a standardized list that then she had laminated and distributed to all, you know, this was before anyone had heard of Zoom, of course, so when the meetings were only in person. But we actually had a laminated list of standard conditions that were placed at our seat, at our desk, at every meeting by whoever happened to be staffing our meeting at that time. It was a rotating assistant city clerk kind of that staffed our meetings, as I recall. But anyway, we lost those, and coming into tonight's meeting, I was trying to find mine at home because I'm sure I saved one, and I couldn't find it at home. But anyway, now that we all use computers and everything, I'm not suggesting that we asked Jim to laminate your email or anything, your document by any means. I've already marked it in my email, so I can easily refer back to it at our monthly meeting. So I just want to thank you for that very much again. The gas pump history, I remember, because I was a sponsor of the ordinance in 2009. And so the history for folks interested is, in the old days, the clerk's office would actually identify for us on our agenda with the phrase gas pumps next to any application that had gas pumps, just so that we were aware and were more sensitized, if you will, to the issue of OWIs and being impaired and their folks with their driving, that we should just be aware that this is an establishment that does that, that's proposing to add alcohol sales, and they sell petroleum products. And then ultimately, through conversations at this committee and with our alcohol policy coordinator, Catherine Polinsky, we indeed, through those discussions, went forward with codifying an ordinance, because we had kind of haphazardly started at that point, I forget for how many years, but had started to say, started limiting combination, or I should say, they were almost all back then, Class A liquor licenses to wine only, because we didn't want spirits to be easily available if someone's clearly in their motor vehicle at the time. And so that it certainly helped when we in the clerk's office could inform applicants that indeed, sorry, if you want to serve hard liquor, you can't do that. It's in violation of MGO. And I actually found an old email chains on this topic from 2009. Yes, I saved way too many of my emails, but between myself and former Assistant City Attorney Steve Brist and Catherine Polinsky rolling all of the ordinance out and the draft language and so forth. So it was 2009. I think, Chair, maybe you were the one asking about that, or how we did that. So that's probably way more of a history than any of you wanted to hear, but there's that history. So I'm happy to seriously consider sponsoring further amendments in that vein, what we did back in the dark ages with the gas pumps, was the phrase that was instilled in me when I first joined this committee. So I can't thank you enough for all this food for thought. It's very helpful. And it's nice to have a laminated sheet now on my email that I can, and all of us can refer to at each of our future meetings. So really appreciate it. Thank you. I think that's all for now, but under the adjournment motion, I think I want to say a few words to try to embarrass this guy.
So Mike, go have a seat and we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Next up, report of Madison Police Department, summary of recent calls for service. Captain, is there anything we need to be aware of?
No, things seem to be going well, especially in calls for service for alcohol establishments. They're really not related to anything concerning with the sale of the alcohol or things like that. So at our bars or anything else. The new establishments that recently opened, there was kind of that license in triplicate that was granted for the Stuffed Olive, the Double Tap Beercade, and then eventually Roxy, the nightclub. 2 of those 3 have opened, with exception to Roxy. The larger venue is opening, I think, by the end of the month. And that has gone very well. We've had no issues there. And management and staff there has been very cooperative with us with putting security measures and things in place. So that's going well, and I do not know of any other concerns.
Are there any questions for the captain? Seeing none, thank you. Item number 34, report of the city clerk's office.
Sure. But first of all, I'll say, for Captain mentioned the Roxy. Roxy, I guess, has an address issue where they needed to apply for a new license. So we gave them a provisional license for this new application. So expect to see them at the next meeting. I'll probably just put on the consent agenda if no one has any objection to it.
Didn't we have that problem with one of their other addresses for that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if it was the Roxy, but we've been through this.
I guess what I was told is zoning asked them to choose one of two addresses, and the one they chose was not the one they applied the alcohol license for. So we were able to change the entertainment license because it's not something we have to publish in the newspaper on the address, but because the renewal published the other address, we had to make them reapply. So yeah, so expect to see them next month.
Is that something that we can just put on the consent agenda?
That's what my plan was.
Okay.
Unless anyone has any objection to it and wants to pull it off. But yeah, my plan was just to put that one on the consent agenda, which I think we typically do when it's just an address kind of change like that we're sort of required to go through the motions like that. But yeah, otherwise I don't have really much to draw. So we're down to about 7 regular licenses. So we're getting to that point where we're running out of the ones that came back from the renewals. Our operator license numbers dropped considerably from this one to the last one. I had not updated them for the last one. I think they were still in the 2000s, but that's because we just went through renewal for the operator licenses. I will say once the students come back from UW, we'll probably get a big surge in operator license applications. So I would expect to see that number jump in the next few months or so. But other than that, I don't think I have anything to add.
Mr. Burshak?
Do you know if the state is issuing operators licenses yet?
Not yet. I believe January of next year, January 1st of next year, they offer a statewide sort of one. I have not heard anything as far as pricing goes or if it's a 1 year or a 2 year. I think they're still sort of working that out. But yeah, no, it's not something that's come up yet. It doesn't start until January 1st of next year.
And then at that point, would that be something that we look at if we still do on a municipality basis or not? If it's...
Yeah, no, I do know that they're not expecting municipalities not to have operator license anymore. I think the ideal, again, I don't know the price point and how it compares to what we offer versus anyone else, but I think the ideal people to use it are someone who serves as a bartender across multiple municipalities where they just need one statewide license versus 2 municipal licenses.
Are there any other questions for the clerk tonight? Seeing none, I guess we are at that time.
Move adjournment.
Alder Verveer.
Well, I'll second with the request that we adjourn in honor of the public service of someone that is no stranger to any of us, and that is Michael Donnelly, our Chair Emeritus. Michael S. Donnelly, to be specific. And if I could speak to that for a moment or
Please
two.
do. I enjoy your speeches at this moment. Yes.
Especially when you're trying to watch Bill Clinton or something. But anyway, the counter programming and the DNC here. But anyway, seriously, I can't thank you, Michael, enough. And I actually felt awful walking into our last meeting and hearing that you were, with little notice, told that your term actually had expired sooner than any of us had anticipated. And I was worried that you wouldn't be coming back, but then I was reassured by our chair that you indeed were coming back and wished to say a few words. I thought it was silly me, it was going to be some sort of farewell address. And instead it's this trustees of all sorts of homework you've built up through your dozen years of service to this committee, to this city, to this community. So as someone that's had the true honor and privilege of serving with you for those 12 years, as a member of this committee, as a colleague, as a peer, as a friend, I just truly want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and tell you how much I'm going to miss you. And for those that don't know, Michael was a community journalist prior to that, covering this committee for I don't know how many years, only 3 years, it seemed like longer. But anyway, the mayor's office realized, well, this guy's a real subject matter expert. He's always in the back of the chamber and reporting on what we do, often the only journalist in the room. and he knows the drill and what we do, and so it was just so cool. I thought that Michael was able to be appointed to this committee after covering us as a journalist for what I thought was longer than perhaps 3 years, but 3 years is a very long time for journalism. So it's been an absolute, as I say, honor and privilege serving with you, Michael, and I can't thank you enough. And I'm not a fan of term limits, as you can perhaps all imagine. So I really wish and think it's kind of unfortunate that we have the term limits in Madison ordinance for resident members of city boards, committees, and commissions. Something that I don't agree with personally, but you're the latest victim of that I wish wasn't the case. So I'm going to miss you very much. I think I speak for all of us that says we're going to miss you, and I can't thank you enough for all your service. So thank you for that.
I think we're all gonna miss you, Michael, but we have your cell number, so.
Ms. Farley.
I was just gonna say, I still get to work with him, so I'm lucky.
What? I'm jealous.
Now, the real question is, will he be able to stop watching this meeting?
Never, never. He's hooked.
He's hooked. He's been doing it for a very long time.
Exactly. Even his cat wants him to watch this meeting. There you go. Now, drop the mic.
Alder Revere.
There was one other thing I was going to say, and I could go on and on about what an amazing facilitator and chair you were, Mike, all those years as our leader. But the one thing I wanted to say too is that the last list of expired licenses that Jim shared with us had the Bartell Community Theater Foundation on it. And I said, well, if Michael was only here, this was last month's meeting, they would never have been on that list, because I know you're the long-time volunteer leader at the Bartell. And Jim, I don't know if they got their house in order and paid their late fees or whatever the issue was, but I thought if you had seen that last list of licenses that had expired at renewal on June 30th, you would have been quite alarmed and would have taken care of it within minutes, I bet. Jim, is Bartell taken care of, or does Michael have to do that as one of his last acts as a ALRC member? But anyway, that's just an example too of all the community work that you do, and you should be recognized for. I'm sure there's way more than I know about, but I know you always were active in the Tenny Lapham Neighborhood Association, among other entities. So anyway, just wanted to mention the Bartell and rib him about that he was no longer the chair and they don't renew their license on time, apparently. Or it was the fees, I'm pretty sure, if I remember, it was fees. Yeah.
So we have a motion for adjournment. Any objections to adjourning? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.